Alright, so today I'm going to be discussing the console wars, and I'm making this video for my girlfriend specifically. She is an aspiring gamer, and I want to give her some background on what she'll be getting into basically. Plus, I enjoy the history of this, you know, personally, just as well. So, with that being said, if you're not my girlfriend, go ahead, click off the video. If you're not my girl, go ahead, click off the video. Go ahead. I'm giving you some time to do that. Alright, now that everyone else is gone, if some of my information is wrong, don't crucify me. Let's get right into the info. So, I'm gonna set this up as sort of a timeline. Um, I'm only gonna speak on parts of the history that I was directly a part of or affected by because it's more simple that way. I can give y'all real life accounts. So, um, obviously, before I dig into the beginning of PlayStation, I'm gonna have to speak on Nintendo and Sega. I'm gonna try to keep it short and sweet because that's not really my era. So before the consoles we know today were at the forefront, there was Nintendo and Sega. Now Nintendo has some consoles out. I believe their most popular was the SNES and the N64. Sega was their direct competitor, with their most popular being the Sega Genesis and the Sega Dreamcast, those two. Now, this is the early 90s. The PC didn't really have an insane presence just yet, mainly because everything was pretty expensive and complex, so PC wasn't really on the scene like that. The systems were also like insanely different from today's standards, or I mean, at least that's my understanding of it. So right now, gaming is geared more toward children and families, aside from PC gaming. But Sega and Nintendo are geared towards children and families. Buy your kid the Dreamcast or the SNES, and they will shut up for an hour and let you get your adulting out of the way, your adult stuff. You know what I mean? Whatever you had to do, whatever you got to lock in on as a grown up. Get your kid the console, and they'll leave you alone for a few hours, right? So, gaming, from my perspective at least, is in its infancy. It's toddler stage, both of them. It's infant toddler stage, like it's in between that. So, titles like Mario, Zelda, Metroid, and Sonic, those are the main ones right now. There are some more, but that's not the point right now. Those are just off top. Now, this is where we're at in the early 90s, right? Now, where does PlayStation come into all this? So, Sony was originally working with Nintendo to build a CD add on for the SNES to allow it to take CDs. But Nintendo ended up pulling out of the deal. Since Nintendo pulled out of the deal, Sony thought of the Nintendo pullout as kind of like a betrayal. It's like we had a deal, we had something. Why y'all just back out like that? You know what I mean? They saw it as dirty. So in turn, this caused Sony to put the CD add-on that they had been developing into a console of their own. This console they started developing would become the Sony PlayStation, released in 1994. So, how did the PlayStation succeed and put Sony on the map as a direct competitor to the giants of the time, Nintendo and Sega? Well, the PlayStation didn't cost as much to make and had more storage using a disc rather than a cartridge. With this, third-party developers took more of an interest because they had more room to work and also didn't have to worry about various fees Nintendo would throw at them. Not to mention the censorship they would have to go through since Nintendo was still pushing the mostly kid-friendly angle, right? Another thing contributing to Sony's success is that they broadened the scope of the market to a wider age range. Games became less of a kid friendly activity and more of like a cooler, like teenager, adult themed type thing, especially with the various famous PlayStation ads and games of that time. If I can find some, I'll put them on the screen. For example, though, for example, the games of the time, though, you got your Castlevanias, Resident Evils, Metal Gears, games like that, right? These help develop that sense of maturity and growth that changed the landscape of gaming. The last big innovation that Sony made was the original DualShock controller, which would become the standard build and layout for most controllers going forward. So, back to the timeline. We're in 1994, and PlayStation is outselling the competition and has now become the dominant gaming platform in the world. The big PlayStation exclusive games at this time were Metal Gear Solid, Resident Evil, Gran Turismo, Tekken 3, Crash Bandicoot, and Tomb Raider. With this shift, gaming shot out into the mainstream media. It was no longer like a low key thing that it was no longer niche basically. It shot out. Everybody knew about it. It was a big deal. It was a big deal. Cause mind you, when 2000 hit, actually, you know what? I'm gonna save that. Now, let me shift out of the Sony and Nintendo talk. I already mentioned that it was before my time and all that stuff. So I don't want to get anything wrong or more wrong than I already have. So let's just go ahead and pick it back up in the year 2000, right? So Sony's still riding the clout from the success of the PlayStation 1. And and now with the trust of the people and their beloved third-party devs, they dropped the PlayStation 2. It was the PS1 but better, right? It had full backwards compatibility with PS1 games and DVD playback, making it the cheapest DVD player on the market. So say you're a regular guy working, just a regular dude, not a gamer, nothing like that. You're just a regular guy working, right? You're on the lookout for the lowest price DVD player on the market. You looking around, can't find nothing that's really in your price range like that. Nothing too crazy. You finally stumble. You at your wits end. You finally stumble onto the PS2. You like, that's a gaming console, right? But it also plays DVDs, and it costs less than some of the DVD players on the market, right? So you buy it. A while after watching the movie you've been trying to watch, you figure, well, it plays games too. I might as well buy one and kill some time, see what it's about. Why not, right? I mean, you already got it. Why not? Now they got you, but you see what I'm getting at though. Anyways, it's made for non-gamers and gamers alike, and it made non-gamers into gamers, right? Double whammy. Sony made the PS2 the console to have, whether it be for games or just to watch your favorite movies or shows. Some of the key exclusives for the PS2 were games like GTA Vice City, San Andreas, Metal Gear Solid 2, Devil May Cry, Shadow of the Colossus, Kingdom Hearts, God of War, Ratchet and Clank, all classics. All classics. Anyways, so moving on to Microsoft. Where does Microsoft come into the picture? This is a console war. I only talked about, PlayStation, Sega, Nintendo. Where you know what I mean? It's the big two. Where's the two? On the Microsoft. So Microsoft sees Sony taking up space in the home entertainment market. They're like, wait a second. The PS2 is inside houses as a DVD player and a gaming console. Like, this is our field. This is our field. We can't have that. So, they decide to develop their own console, the original Xbox. That console launched in 2001, featuring an internal hard drive, meaning no memory cards needed. It also sported an Ethernet port, meaning eventual online play. I'm gonna get to that. The game that launched with the Xbox was a classic off rip. Basically, it went triple platinum in the streets immediately. Like there's nothing, like there was nothing better. Anybody else who is watching probably already knows. I'm talking about Halo. Halo Combat Evolved, the first Halo. Now, in 2002, Xbox launched Xbox Live, meaning now players could play online with friends. This was the foundation for modern console gaming. This fueled community and competition, boosting sales. It was perfect. It boosted sales. Like, you can get on with your friends and cook other people. Oh yeah, I'm on that. Like, what? Definitely a sales booster. Microsoft saw Sony and said they got everything on lock besides the competitive aspect. So that's what we're banking on. Simple, right? So, mind you, while the Xbox was a hit, it didn't come anywhere close to the sales of the PS2. Since it was so new, it had very few exclusives as well, like the aforementioned Halo, Ninja Gaiden, and Fable. There are more, but I'm only listing a few, the ones that I personally know about. Um, so moving on from 2000 to 2005, while the console wars were happening, what's going on with the PCs? So PC gaming was still in the Wild West basically, but it's slowly becoming its own little civilization, right? By now, games like World of Warcraft and Counter Strike have emerged. Valve ended up launching Steam in 2003. Real time strategy and I think it's massively multiplayer online role playing games are on the rise. MMO RPG games are on the rise. The only roadblock for the PC right now is the high component cost, GPUs, things like that, and the fact that there was no centralized game launcher until Steam, basically. You know what I mean? But even then, still, it was more so go to the site, download the launcher, and then get it. Like every game had a different launcher, so Steam was just coming onto the scene, getting everybody together, right? So, in totality, in 2000, 2005 totality, the Xbox introduced online play into the mainstream, and although they didn't outsell the PlayStation, they set themselves up to put up more of a fight in the future, right? Now let's jump to late 2005. Now that Microsoft has some skin in the game, they were prepared for their next big rollout, right? The Xbox 360. Microsoft managed to perfect the production process to make it more cost efficient and easier to make, bringing back hit online features and achievements. Now it sounds like Microsoft came out the gate swinging, right? Well, that was just the beginning. Games like Halo 3, Call of Duty, and my personal favorite, Gears of War, helped nurture the momentum that they had and keep it pushing, solidifying Microsoft and Xbox as an actual name in gaming and in the gaming community. PlayStation shot back almost immediately, but missed the mark with the PlayStation 3 in 2006. The PS3, my favorite console of all time, was overpriced. It was overpriced. Almost $600 or 600 flat, depending on where you went. Sony managed to back themselves into a corner. Although global sales eventually evened out, Sony seemingly left the console wars hanging in the balance at this point. Although both consoles produced all-time favorite games of mine, to list a few: Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 3, Fallout New Vegas, Skyrim, Dishonored, Dragon Age 2, Modern Warfare 2 and 3, The Force Unleashed, Witcher 2, Borderlands 1 and 2, BioShock. I'm not gonna list every single game I know. Those are just games that were crazy at that time. Just insane. And honestly, there are so many games that put each console on the map for gamers and non-gamers alike. People who were fresh, people who've been in it for a while. I mean, I know I left a lot of games out, but it's mainly because I don't want to get too long-winded, because I could go on for days probably. But those aren't just games to me anyways. Those are my childhood. I remember the experience of being at QuakeCon when they were showing off Dishonored and getting to play the demo myself before it came out in 2012. The whole point of me saying all that is, while Sony and Microsoft were duking it out, there were some generational bangers coming out. Crazy games. Just all time, just hits on hits on hits. Like, it's insane. Alright, let's keep it pushing. Fast forward to late 2013. Sony and Xbox going crazy. Sony decided to get the first hit in this time with the PlayStation 4. They came back fully realized, understanding what made the previous consoles suffer and improving upon it. It was simply built and not overpriced. The PS4 took a more serious approach in terms of gaming and socialization. Also, in the later years came some of the heavy hitting exclusives like Bloodborne, God of War, Uncharted 4, and my personal favorite, which still hasn't received the love it deserved. I don't know, y'all might hate me for this too. Days Gone. It's a banger. I'm so sorry. Days Gone is amazing. Anyways, Xbox, on the other hand, launched with a bunch of technical issues and weaker hardware than the PS4. It's getting blown out the water. They opted to go in a more lifestyle entertainment direction instead of just gaming. Xbox spent most of this generation trying to catch up to Sony, right? Introducing features like backwards compatibility and Game Pass to soften the blow that they were taking. Now, finally, we have made it to the semi-present day. Late in the year, again, of course. I believe it was 2020, like November. Microsoft dropped the Xbox Series X, a beast in performance, not to mention launching alongside the Series S, the more affordable option for the people who got jobs. They ain't got all day, and they not spending all their money on gaming consoles and such. So remember how I said Xbox spent last generation catching up? Well, catch they did. alongside their flagship exclusives, they also leaned more into the Game Pass. I'm going to briefly explain to you what that is real quick. So you pay a monthly subscription, like maybe I think it's like $5. It may be lower. I'm not sure. But basically, monthly subscription for like $5, and they give you access to an entire library of games from a bunch of generations. I think it may be all the way down to the original Xbox, if I'm not mistaken. So essentially, you can play any game in the library for a subscription fee. That works for people who just want to try games and not commit. Amazing business model, in my opinion. Anyways, they also figured out how to cross-play with PC. After all, they are a Microsoft company, so it makes sense. Microsoft computers, PC gaming, Xbox gaming, it just makes sense, right? With the leaps they were making, Microsoft also began acquiring developers and publishers, most notably Bethesda and Activision Blizzard. Two heavy hitters, Um, if you don't know, Bethesda, Skyrim, Oblivion, Fallout, games of that kind, Starfield, Activision Blizzard, Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Overwatch. I think. Hold on, don't quote me on that. Definitely the Call of Duty games. Call of Duty is big enough on its own, right? Anyways, so just to mention a few, just in case I'm okay. Now, dun 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 to the PS5. When Sony launched the PS5, you could not get it. And to be honest, I know some people right now who still don't have one. Not hating on them, but I know some people right now who still don't have one. On launch, it was in such high demand. Such high demand. You could not get one. Honestly, props to Sony for their marketing. But Sony stuck to their guns and focused on their exclusives and even made progress in the virtual reality space. Sony won the numbers game again, but Microsoft won in a way different way. Their subscription service from Game Pass was working its magic. So, from the top down, on paper, Sony is still winning the direct sales war. However, Microsoft isn't just playing for straight sales anymore. With their subscription business model, Sony is keeping it traditional, sticking to what they know, while Microsoft is doing what they've always done, innovating and pushing the scales. They trying stuff. All in all, there's no clear winner in the console wars, and in recent years, it may seem like the war has fizzled out. But to be honest, it would be foolish to believe there isn't a Cold War going on right now. There definitely is, in my opinion. It's never over. But with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, I guess. Or if you think I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. I mean, I did my research, but please let me know if I'm wrong. Please help anybody else who thinks I'm wrong. Shoot, let them fill them in on the knowledge. Anyways, with that being said, I'm gonna catch y'all later.